Blue Archive. If you've been a long-time viewer of the channel, you most likely have seen the older videos, and if you're a newer viewer, then maybe you've seen the most recent ones, where I actually talk about some of the characters I do like Koharu and Izuna herself. She's my favorite character. I've maxed her out, both her swimsuit variation and her normal variation, and she's kind of the reason I wanted to both cover the content of this game, but also stuck with it. However, no matter how good the characters themselves may be, I do take issue with some aspect of Blue Archive, and I kind of want to go over that because I recommend this game a lot, but even though I say the gameplay isn't great, the story and characterization is. I'm going to be blunt, for a lot of individuals I understand that may not be enough for you. Blue Archive is a game to where, yes, if you take it seriously, then you can have a fun time. If you don't necessarily mind the grind that comes with it and some RNG aspects, you can have an amazing time, not just with the characters themselves and the story, but also with Total Assault, Joint Firing Drill, that's what it's called. But for a lot of individuals who aren't necessarily into taking the game seriously, I don't really know if I can recommend Blue Archive. See, the downside is, Blue Archive is a game that has great story, great characterization, and if you enjoy the aspect of collecting your favorite character and then eventually maxing them out, at least in terms of their skills and abilities, then you will have that fun. But as somebody who's maxed out their favorite character, both variations of her, it kind of drops off from there. Because you can like a character. For instance, I love Koharu here, she's free. But beyond maxing her out and eventually getting her up to that point, there is nothing more. The relationship story that you do get from the character can be gained from YouTube. It can be gained from watching somebody else's video. And so if this aspect here, the aspect of upgrading a character and seeing the animations that kind of autoplay for you, isn't appealing enough to you to get you to try this game, then I don't think it's a game for you. Now, I've spoken about Genshin Impact's own personal teapot, and I do like building in there, but the cafe in Blue Archive just isn't that, and I understand. Genshin's 3D, this is not, I can understand the top-down viewpoint for this one, but the cafe also doesn't really give you much to work with. Like, yeah, these animations here are adorable, and I do love them a lot. But that, in tandem with the lessons, in tandem with the fact that most of the story, if not all of the story and characterization points from the relationship storylines can be gained online, doesn't really give you enough reason to come back. I found, not only with myself, but with multiple other individuals who maybe got their favorite character, that once you have your units, in this instance for me it's Izuna and Koharu and Hifumi for her swimsuit edition, once you have the units you legitimately like, and once you've invested into them to the point where you can kind of get through all of the relationship storylines, you don't have much reason to continue playing. Because you can get the story itself from YouTube scenes. You can watch that yourself. You can ask for a summary from somebody else. And I understand there might be a different feeling when you're playing it yourself, but that different feeling is for a minority in comparison to might have individuals who just wouldn't find it fun. But that's enough ranting and raving about that aspect. The gacha is also an issue. If you want a character, you typically would have to do 200 pulls to guarantee them. Now, on one aspect, you can say that's fine and their rates aren't egregious, but even when the game gives you a rate up, not necessarily just the normal rate up, but I mean for the anniversaries and things where the rates themselves are boosted by double, that sounds nice on paper until you realize that as you pull, you're getting dupes of other characters. You're not getting the on-banner character, you're getting a 3-star, which is like the equivalent of a 5-star in other games, or 6-star if you play Arknights, and it sounds good, and you think, oh, I've gotten the character, and no, it's a dupe of somebody else. And typically it's a dupe of a character you don't even like Amy. I don't like Amy. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like her. And so when you're going through that cycle, you get to the idea and you get used to the concept of having to pull until you get specific on-banner unit and not expecting them to be early. And I get that that's a consistent factor with other games, sure, and the LFs vaguely make up for it because you can max out a unit and you don't have to pull multiple copies of them. But once again, if you aren't invested into a lower rarity unit, maxing them out doesn't really mean much because you don't get more relationship storylines for them. It's not like you max them out and you suddenly unlock a secondary live 2D. You only get the one, and occasionally they may get updated variations of them, like here's one more scene from them. But beyond that, no, you have to wait for an alt. And in regards to waiting for alts, limited banners suck. The rates are technically boosted during them, like recently we had the Hoshino limited rerun, and that was nice. But if you're pulling on a limited banner, it's a similar factor to other games where you do have to wait for that character to rerun, but they aren't necessarily rerunning with their initial limited rate up. They may instead be an off banner, which could also suck. Beyond that, Blue Archive doesn't necessarily give you enough free currency for a lot of players. This means that the game does incentivize you to play more competitively, to push harder into content like Total Assault, like Joint Firing Drill, and so on. And this can be a great thing if you enjoy the loop of the game, but if you don't, playing casually sucks, because unless the event rolls around to where you can get the materials for your unit to level them up, specifically their skills and abilities, you're not going to have a fun time trying to farm for these, because it is a bit RNG based. And unless a time comes around to where you actively know exactly what stages will have the materials you need, because yes, to a degree it does show you what you need, you aren't going to have a fun time. And if you take a gap, like many individuals, including myself, have, it is much harder to catch up to the rest of the player base, which is fine if you feel like you have control over how you can choose to farm for your characters, their equipment, their skills, and so on. But if you feel like it's RNG based, if it is down to RNG, if you don't have enough control, if you can't really push into harder content, even though you know what you need to do, but you can't actively do it because you don't have control over the characters, it can once again push you away. And so the downside of Blue Archive is the gameplay isn't necessarily good, and the story is great, but if the game had a standalone story separated from the gacha aspect or the game itself, people would love that. And I think most individuals can admit the story and the characters are why you play the game. They're cute and funny, yes, but you legitimately get attached to some units if you like them. So I think my general metric is this. If you have a character you love, and you know they're either a 2-star or easily obtainable as a free unit, you may legitimately want to just go in, grab that character, feel and do the relationship story for yourself, and then leave. But if you don't, if you want a limited character, you're kind of in a position to where I think it's better to just watch the scenes on YouTube and look at the porn, because it is incredibly difficult. The hardest characters for me to get in this game were Hifumi's Swimsuit Edition and Shigure. And even if you pull, it may not be a character you like getting duped for. You may get dupes of a character you hate. You may get dupes of a character you never want to use. And so as a result, I think that I can't recommend you play Blue Archive so much as I recommend you interact with the community. The community is great, the art is great, the music is great, the characters are great, the gameplay is not, the gacha is not, and the loop of login, tap is not. Tell me yours down below, because I know a lot of individuals from my channel watch Blue Archive and play Blue Archive and enjoy the game. Have you dropped it? Have you restarted it? I can't bring myself to continue playing it. I will cover it, don't get me wrong, I will talk about the characters because they deserve it, but I will not continue to try playing and pushing into the game because it's not worth it. You will still see story-based videos though. Either way, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.